Good morning, everyone. Well, I hope you had a good weekend and our start of this week is going good. I guess today is Tuesday. Yeah. I have to keep track. I don't have a schedule. I'm working Friday. Technically, I was working yesterday, but I didn't have to go in for it, so. I'm working Friday. It's the last day on this job. And then Renaissance Festival, more pirates on Saturday. I could go on Sunday and give myself a day off, but everybody's going to be there on Friday. A lot of photo ops, all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, we had the opening weekend, and I showed you some of the pictures of that. So I'm not going to bore you with that again. And I can't monetize it. So I'm not going to throw it up there for a whole day and then throw away a day. I'm not going to do that. YouTube would love me to do that. Anyhow, I have a lot of people that don't want to use PayPal. It's there if you want to use it. If you guys want to contribute to my page, just simply click on the thanks button. $1 or $2, $5, whatever you want to do there. Do that. It goes into the YouTube coffer. I only get paid once a month out of that fund. If it's PayPal, I can collect it immediately. I don't care. I'm not starving. This is extra spending money if I need to buy something extra. Like I had to work on my car last year, and I was scrounging trying to come up with enough money to do that. So far, God's taken care of me this year. I don't have that problem. I've been able to stay where I'm at longer, which allows me to not spend as much, other than gas. But I was driving into town to work, so it's no big deal. Okay, we've covered the book of Revelation from one end to the other, and I'm tired of it. It's got some hard chapters in it. We're not going to be here, but we've got to tell the people about it, tell the world about it. So we are involved. You can't ignore it. If churches choose to ignore Revelation, then they're ignoring the parts of the Bible. You can't play smorgasbord. I'll have a little of this and a little of that. I might come back for some of this later, but and they put the salads up front, so you fill up your plates and stomach with salad before they put the meats at the end, which are better for you, but they have to spend more money on anyhow. So I thought what we'd do today is just kind of take a break, and we're going to look at where we're at. We're going to take the world's temperature, see just where we are in the end times. We are not in the tribulation. Now, in your life, you will have tribulation. So from that point of view, we've been in tribulation since the day we were born. But that's not what I'm talking about. And we are in the last days. But they've been in the last days since Jesus was here. So we're not using that term. Well, we are in the last days, but the term that we use and what I use, I call it the end times. I think the Bible uses the expression end of times as opposed to end times, but it's just the same thing, just how you say it. We get so much caught up in the words, and yet we've got so many different languages involved here. Don't get caught up in the words. Okay, so we're going to kind of see where we're at. We're going to look at things that have gone on, but before we do anything, we're going to refresh our memory from Matthew 24. The Olivet Discourse, the beginning of it. So Matthew 24, verse 3, join me there. While Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. Hey, you can tell us. Tell us, they said. When will these things happen, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? End of age, end of times, depends on the translation. And Jesus answered them, see to it that no one deceives you. I talk about this every time I read this. It's interesting when he's asked about the end of times or end of age, that no one deceive you is the most important thing. You always lead with your most important item whenever you're giving a speech or telling a story. And it's very easy. Just turn on the news, turn on anything. Movies, they're all being tailored to the ruler of this world. For many will come in my name, claiming I am the Christ, and will deceive many. We've seen him over the ages. Now, this is Jesus talking, so he's talking 2,000 years ago. We have 2,000 years of recorded history where we can see there have been many Christs. Christ or Messiah, same word, Savior. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. God, I don't think there's ever been, has there been 5 minutes where there hasn't been a war somewhere? Sad epitaph. But see to it that you are not alarmed. The wars are there. There will be bad people. These things must happen, but the end is still to come. There's a war going on right now in Israel. They're finally going into Rafah and cleaning out. And there's, again, miles of tunnels. And the one thing that they don't want you to hear worldwide, Egypt doesn't want you to hear, the United States doesn't want you to hear, there are tunnels big enough to drive a bus through, going across the border into Egypt. Have they been privately helping Hamas? They've tried to stay neutral, but have they been privately helping? It's a good possibility, but Israel and Egypt are working out their details. Egypt is not involved in the final wars. So there may be something. They're the only ones in the immediate area that's not involved. So it's interesting that they may come up with a peace plan of some sort, not the 7-year peace plan that the Antichrist will have. Continuing on in 7, nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. Yeah, we've had that. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. Seems to be a lot more earthquakes now than we've had. All these are the beginning of the birth pains. Birth pains increase the closer to the birth. What's the birth? Revelation 12. Male child will be born and Satan tries to kill him. Who's the male child? Christians. Because this is post-temple. Jesus has already been here. Yeah, he is the one that's going to rule the millennium for 1,000 years, but he's not ruling by himself. He's ruling with his saints. Okay. All these are beginnings of the birth pains. And they will deliver you over to be persecuted and killed, and you will be hated by all nations because of my name. Now, a lot of that applied to the first century, but we're coming right around and we're doing it again. Now, he's talking to, the thing you got to realize with this Olivet Discourse and Jesus talking, he's talking to Jewish disciples in Jerusalem. It's at the Mount of Olives. He's not talking to Gentiles. He's not talking about the rapture. When he gets into the prophecy part at the end, he's not mentioning the rapture. He's talking about his second coming. And he's talking about the final gathering of and separating the sheep and the goats to go to the white throne judgment. That's what he's talking about. He's not talking about the rapture. So you don't get a rapture verse out of Matthew 24 or 25. Okay. Verse 11, and many false prophets will arise and mislead many. Yeah. We have a lot of them. Okay, so let's just take a look at some general things around the world and in our country that, talking about the United States, that's going on here. Our national debt is approaching $35 trillion. I think it was 34.5 or something back in March. And we're still handing out money like we're drunken sailors. I've said before, if your plan is to devalue the dollar down to zero and you owe $34 trillion, how much do you owe if that dollar value is zero? You owe zero. It's in their plan. And we're giving billions of dollars to Ukraine, but is it really going there, or are they just using it for money laundering? There's probably some going there, because if somebody's helping you money launder, they're going to want their cut, or they're going to squeal. I think they've had 5 bills, maybe 6, where they've allotted money to Ukraine. They're holding up money to Israel right now to give them more arms. I think somebody managed to get the shipment to them in the Republican side, which made Biden mad. He doesn't like people to do what he's doing. Okay, so I think the total budget, the media says it's $175 billion, and God, they're lying through their teeth, and they know it, and there's nobody to call them out. Okay, this is an election year. We're a few months away. This is May, so we got June, July, August, September, October, November. 6 months. A lot can happen in 6 months. But are you seeing a complete media blitz? There ought to be ads on social media. There ought to be ads on TV. Are you seeing it? I'm not. I might find a local candidate. There's signs around locally for county commissioner and things like that. But are you seeing a nationwide blitz, which we see every year? Nope. They have something else in mind. That ought to scare you right there. Let's see, we've had one major bridge destroyed. Major bridge. The Francis Drake Bridge. Our national anthem bridge. Francis Scott Key, is that what it's? I said Drake. Francis Scott Key Bridge. A lot of people are going to have to commute around or telecommute because they can't cross over there. And that's one. And there's been 2 or 3 other bridges that have been hit. They haven't knocked them down. See how easy it would be for them to take out all of our superstructure? We've had power grids go down from time to time. We know that that's possible. We know that they can be hacked. Every once in a while we find a Chinese hacker or somebody over on the other side of the world that doesn't like us hacking into something. A government computer or something. Most top secret stuff is going to be behind a firewall that you can't get out. When I worked on top secret stuff, I couldn't talk about it in a room with a window. In my office had windows all around, so I couldn't talk about it. We have to go into back closed door meeting rooms, and all the work that we did was back there as well. How many food processing plants have burned in the last few years? Quite a few. How many birds have been put to death because of some kind of a bird flu? A lot. How much land, how many millions of acres of land have been bought by these billionaires, these 7 horns, of which the 7th will die and become the 8th, the Antichrist. These are rich people. So the Antichrist is out there. He's alive right now doing his thing. He's one of the rich people. They don't have crowns, so they're not kings. Speaking of which, have you seen that grotesque picture of King Charles? He's part of the New World Order. He's been to the school, the World Economic Forum meeting that they have up in Switzerland every year. He's a graduate of that. And you see where these billionaires are also building underground bunkers. Bezos, I think, was one of the last ones that I saw. They probably don't want you to know that, but they're building, and I guarantee you everybody's got one. But you're not hearing about them all. What do they know that we don't? Of course, the media is controlled. We all know that. They bought politicians for years, and then they realized they didn't really have to. They just have to own the media. Let's see, what else have we had this year? We've had a pretty significant eclipse, making an X across the United States from where the one was 7 years ago. And 7 years ago, this fall, we had the Revelation 12 sign. Now, of course, all the rapture predictors were saying that, rapture's this year, this is a sign. Well, it was a sign. But a sign to tell us that the times are at hand. This fall will be 7 years. That's a time of completion for God. So if He's given us a sign 7 years ago, I'd be paying attention to what's happening coming up this fall. I'm not surprised that we're still here now, because I would predict a fall. Feast of Trumpets is this fall. Everybody kept saying there's going to be trumpets. That's when that is. Now, they've been looking at Passover and all kinds of stuff, and we just had Pentecost, and we know now that those dates have been messed with so much. Shavuot and Pentecost aren't on the same day. But tradition teaches wrong things. We've got major solar flares coming off of the sun right now. Major ones. Just how big are they? Well, if they were a hurricane, we'd be classing them as Category 5 or above on the Fujitsu scale, an F5. Well, they use an X in place of the F, so they're X class. And we're getting some big ones. You say, well, what's so significant about that? It can totally disrupt everything on this planet if it hits a direct hit. The sun is round. It's a big nuclear reactor. And if it sends out a flare and it comes right straight at the Earth, it can knock out satellites, computers, cause all kinds of static and things on radio and TV. It can mess things up. It can literally take things down. If you got an electronic circuit monitoring something important, it can take that down. It's the equivalent of what we've been talking about as a military attack. It's the equivalent of an EMP coming from the sun. And the sun is why we don't live as long as we do. I've talked about this in the past. Got one of our neighbors is driving by in his golf cart, so you may want to say hi. I'm going to hold off for a second. Well, he didn't say anything, but he waved. If you read the early part of the Bible, pre-flood, people lived a long time. Methuselah was what, 959, 969? All the people back then lived, hundreds of years. I think Moses was 300 when he started building the ark. I couldn't build a dinghy at my age, I don't think. Well, I could, but I certainly wouldn't want to tackle an ark. After the flood, ages started going down. What happened? We've talked about it. I've talked about it. What's the sign of the covenant that God gave mankind? A rainbow. It's a breeze, but it's not causing wind problems, I hope. They never saw a rainbow before. How do you get a rainbow? A rainbow is colors separating through the water into a prism, essentially, so you get the colors separating. All the light that we see, the light coming from the sun is white. It's not yellow. The sky is not blue. It's just that's the only color that isn't filtered out. If the sun was actually yellow, you'd have yellow snow. And you know to stay away from that, right? Okay, so it's not. So it's white. A rainbow is basically caused by water vapor and the sun. They never saw the sun before. Not direct. They saw maybe a white ball going behind the clouds. The earth was completely covered in moisture. We know that there are plants in the northern latitudes. We found ferns up in Russia and other places. Ferns that are tropical plants. We found frozen mastodons with food in their stomach. Whatever happened, happened fast. And they were eating green plants. The earth used to be green all around. Something knocked us off kilter. We're tipped 3.5 degrees and we wobble. It gives us our seasons. God decided to give us a little bit more interesting life than just living on a nice, calm, still planet spinning true on its axis. But you opened up the atmosphere, let the sun come in, and people's lives started going down. There's enough up there. There's some clouds in the sky, you can see them, to block a good part of it. But going out and lying in the sun, it's not good for you. Now, it's hard to tell from my hair, and in a few days I'm going to either color my hair dark permanently or I'm going to use a temporary on it so I can do my pirate thing for the Saturday. I grew up with red hair, so I've got to stay out of the sun. Any ginger knows you got to stay out of the sun. But everybody, frankly, should stay out of direct sunlight. But yet, what do we do for activities? We go to the beach, we run around, take your shirts off and everything and run around. And people start getting skin cancer. The sun is deadly. Space is deadly. We're not rushing to Mars. Frankly, not rushing to the moon. I don't think we're going to get there in the time that's left. We're supposed to they just did a dress rehearsal for the SpaceX Super Heavy rocket, the big one. We're talking maybe 2 weeks to have the fourth launch. This one should be pretty. I got a crane right down here. I wish I could zoom in with this camera, but the camera can't. It's on this phone. I might look at upgrading this just because I can get. This one's 3 years old, 4 years old. If I upgrade it, I can get a better phone so I can give you better pictures. So I'm thinking about that. Pray about it. But they're getting ready to launch another spaceship. But there's no reason to be in a hurry because Mars is completely uninhabitable. There's very little atmosphere. It'd be worse than being on top of Everest. And there's nothing to block the direct sunlight coming down. There's no clouds. The most you're going to get are dust storms that might block it. We've seen dust storms block the sun on Mars. They've had pictures of it. But it's not going to be all the time. They'd have to live underground. We've got the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie about Mars. They lived underground. It's the only way they could live there. So you're not in direct contact. Even the astronauts have to deal with it. All right. I don't want to go off on that kind of rabbit trail right now. That's another video. But we are in the end times. The last days for sure, from Jesus forward, but we are in the end times. We've seen the Revelation 12 sign, so we are in the book of Revelation. We haven't seen the Antichrist yet, but we're seeing the harlot work, and we're seeing the seven kings work. We're in the book of Revelation. It's about ready to start. And when it does, we're out of here. Till we meet in the clouds. God bless. Continuing to follow the progress of our parent geese. Where'd they go? There they go. What I don't see is these other geese over here. I don't see them with little ones. I don't understand. There's another pair over there with some little ones. These are really getting big here.